The following video is brought to you by the Space Coast Association of Realtors.
Okay, for the next session, we're going to be talking about listing maintenance. This is where you will put your listings into the computer, upload your photos, and you can also upload PDF attachments to the listings. So we'll start out, and you go into Innovia and log in, and you can get to the program under maintenance and listings. And it's kind of an important part there when you want to put a listing back on the market that it's expired or withdrawn. Then that's where you would go also. You'd go right under listings under the maintenance tab. But you can also go over here to the right where there's a big plus sign that says add new listing. Just click on that. And then you would select the agent. If you're signed on as yourself, you'll only have one agent there. As the office MLS director, I have all the agents available to me. But then you just click on the property type. You have different property types for condo, rental, townhouse, commercial, vacant land, etc. Choose the one for the listing that you have. Click on Continue. And it's going to bring up the listing maintenance screen. And basically what we're doing here is going from field to field and completing each one. If you got one of the standard forms off of the front page and filled the standard form out, it'd be quite easy. So we'll go through, we'll put in the price, and we put in the list date. The list date typically should be the date that you put it into the computer. So today's date, and then you just hit the tab and move from field to field, or you can move your mouse from field to field. So expire date. And then tab over, you've got your contact field. If you've co-listed the property, you can click who you co-listed it with, or just choose yourself. How your appointment setup will be, you can either use list office, agent home, owner, showing service, or tenant. If you're going to be using the new e-showing program, you could click showing service. And some of the offices are using some of the other showing services within their company. And then put in the appointment phone. And what type of listing it is, exclusive right, exclusive broker. Probably should know those by now. If you're just an office assistant putting the listings in, the agent will have to have told you whether it's an exclusive right or exclusive broker. The type of service, in most cases you're going to have full, but there are options like for limited service if you're not going to be negotiating for the seller or doing certain things, then you might have limited service. If you're an MLS entry only, we have firms that just put listings in and leave it up to the seller to handle the sale. But typically you'll have full. If you have a co-listing agent, you can look that agent up. I'm not going to do that at this point. But then you get down to the point here where the tax ID number, you can input that. If you want to auto-populate from the property appraiser's data, this is how you do it. You can start out, if you don't have the tax ID number handy, and the only way you would have gotten that is if you went to the property appraiser's website and looked it up. But you can do the lookup right from here. So you click Look Up Tax Info. And you can search the property by the owner's name, property street name, property street number. We'll just type in the owner's name and hit the Submit button. And we'll click Continue. Found the records that we were looking for. Okay, and our person is right here. We click on that tax ID number, and you'll see that it populates about 10 different fields once you hit the Populate Tax Info data. So we're going to populate the tax ID number. You can see that now it's populated. The taxes, the plat book and page, the tax year. If we scroll down a little bit, we'll see that the owners are populated, address is populated, subdivision is populated. If it has a pool or a fireplace, those would also be populated. So it saves you a bit of a few steps there. It also puts in the square footage, and so you can say that that came directly from the property appraiser's data. So you pick up where you left off. You have a map page. You'll notice that some of the fields are in black. Those are non-required fields. Anything in red is a required field, so you won't be able to skip over it. If you do skip over it and you go to save the listing, it'll tell you that you have to fill in that information. So map page, we'll put that in. Map coordinates. We actually don't use map coordinates all that much. We do have fold-up maps that you can buy at the board, and those maps have coordinates on them that can zero down to where a property is within a square mile. Used to be very popular long before GPS was around, but we don't really use the map coordinates all that much. Any units in the property, the measurements. So this is what I was talking about earlier with the square footage. You would come down here and you would check that you got it off the tax rolls from the property appraiser's office. Is there a variable commission? Yes or no? We'll say, for our example, we'll say yes. Is there a bonus amount? We'll say yes. And then we'll have to put in the actual bonus amount. When you see a blue field after a red field, that's what's called a conditional mandatory. So if you filled in something in the red field, then the next field, if it's blue, becomes a mandatory field. So we have to put in something for bonus amount. And so we'll put in 1,000. And then we have to tell it whether it's a percentage or a dollar amount. So we'll put in the dollar amount. And now we'll go through the rest of the commission fields. So buyer agent, you know, maybe it's 2% to the buyer's agent. Click on the drop down and choose whether it's percent or dollar sign. Transactional agent, put in, we'll say 3%. Okay, non-representative, put in 2%, let's say. Sub-agent, if you're not going to offer sub-agency, which a lot of offices don't do. In fact, most offices don't do sub-agency anymore. It used to be the way business was done, and it looks like we're probably going to be getting rid of that field at some point in time. Equitable interest, yes or no? Do you as the listing agent have an equitable interest in the property? Do you have some kind of ownership interest in the property? Is this a listing of your parents or your brother or family member? You would have to check whether you have equitable interest or not. These are the different fields: street number, street name, county, state, city, zip code. All those things auto-populated when we did the auto-population. What type of area it's in? It's in, we'll say, Cocoa Beach. And if you have the zoning available, you can type in that. Subdivision, again, is auto-populated from when we auto-populated it from the tax ID number from the property appraiser's office. Residential property type, we have the subtypes of half duplex, manufactured, single family, detached. So if it's a single family detached, we click on that. Is the property a short sale? Of course, we see a lot of those these days, so if it is a short sale, you need to check yes. If the property is going to auction, you would check yes. And then you complete the date that it's going to auction and the time of the auction. And put that information in there. The living square foot, the year built, were auto-populated. The property appraiser does not carry bedrooms and bathrooms, so you will need to enter that. So we'll say 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and let's say 1 half bath. So basically we're just, again, going from field to field and filling out each one. Lot dimensions and acreage, auto-populated. What way does the front door face? I'll click on that. It faces east. Are there any furnishings involved in the sale? And we say none. Is it on the water? We'll say yes. Fireplace and pool were fixed from the auto-population. Go back here, waterfront type, we'll say canal navigational. Pool size, if you measured the pool, you could put that in. If it has a pool, say 20 by 20. And then split bedroom plan, yes or no. And then you have your room dimensions. They're not required. Most people find them very helpful, so if you can go out and measure the property and get those in there, then that would be great. You fill in those different fields. So always round down to the nearest inch or foot, and I'll just fill in a couple of these. And that's the way you would do it, going through and filling in each field for the different room dimensions. And we have porch size, patio size. Is there a homeowners association? Yes or no? We'll say yes. And it's required to put in the homeowners association amount and the term. So it's $100, and we pay that monthly. Are there any other fees involved? There are some condo developments that have fees that are kind of outside the homeowners association fees. Indian River Colony Club comes to mind. So in that case, they'd type in yes, and again, put in the amount of the fees and how often it's paid. I'll just say yearly. Is the property homesteaded? You want to include that in there, yes or no? Are there any outstanding assessments, and who pays them? Buyer assumes, buyer pays, it's included. Seller pays, or other. We'll just say other. Is it a 55 or over community? Say yes or no. We'll say no. Is it in a gated community? In this case, we'll say no. Is it in a PUD? We'll say no. Is there a home warranty included? We'll say yes. Are there deed restrictions on the property? It's not required, so if you don't know if there are any, just leave it blank. But if you know of some, put in yes. Is the property free and clear, doesn't have a mortgage on it? We'll click over here and say yes. And then bank owned would be our foreclosure button. So if it's a foreclosure, we will put yes, but in our case, we said it was just a short sale. It's not foreclosed yet, so we'll put in no. Is the loan on it existing, assumable? We'll say no. Corporate owned would be like for relocation companies. I know we have some folks that say that Fannie Mae, Freddie Macs are not banks, so they would go under corporate owned. We're going to be making some changes that will fix that. To be constructed is no. Put in your lockbox serial number if you're placing a lockbox on the property. We do a connection with Supra at night, and there's an icon on the full display that you'll be able to click on to see if people have entered your property with the Supra e-key. So if you don't have you're putting a combo lockbox on it or something else, you can just leave serial number blank. Then we get to our narrative, okay? Just a couple things about the narrative. You're not allowed to put any contact information in that. You can't put in call Andy at 555-1212. No directives, only things that are talking about, they're mentioning the property. So you want to leave any kind of branded information out of the narrative, including any websites. You know, we have a data checker program that'll check to see if a website or a telephone number is in the narrative. So you're just going to have the best poetry you can come up with for your narrative. And if you have an exceptional home, you can go down to the next section and put in like a second page or an addendum to the narrative. There's a separate display in the system that will show the addendum information. So you could add some additional addendum information there, additional narrative. And if you're going to include that, you want to change the additional remarks in brochure to yes. Okay, now the next section over is show it now, yes or no. If you're familiar with the e-showings program and you're using show it now, you need to start out by checking this button and making it yes. Okay, if you're not using e-showings, if you're using other ways to show the property, or you don't want to use e-showings for whatever reason, then you would mark show it now no. Legal description, again, was auto-populated. These IDX contact types, you can leave those alone. We don't really use those too much at all at the present time. They're not required, so I just tell people to leave them blank. But we do get to an important question here, which is internet. You see that it's defaulted to yes. Okay? You only want to change that to no if your seller says, I don't want my listing on the internet. And when we say the internet, we're talking about our public site and Realtor.com, not only the listings that we syndicate and things like that. So if you ever have somebody say, well, my listing's not on Realtor.com, that's probably because the internet was saved as no field instead of yes. Okay, then you have another field, listed property address. If you're going to put it out on the internet, do you want the address to show? Most of the time you'll say yes, because if it's on a lot of these other sites that have mapping, it's not going to be able to work if you don't have the property address on the listing. So you want to change that to yes. And then the next two fields are in relation to VOWs, which stands for Virtual Office Websites, of which we currently have none in Brevard County, but it was a requirement from National Association of Realtors and the Department of Justice settlement from a couple, 2 or 3 years back. So just leave those as no. You don't want people doing automated valuations on your listing on some other website, and you don't want people commenting on your listing on some other people's website. So you typically make those no. If you've created a virtual tour, you would click yes, and then copy and paste the virtual tour right in here where it says virtual tour example. Okay, we don't have a virtual tour made for this. You can always use the property panorama program to make your virtual tours. A lot of times you'll make those after you put the listing in the system, and then you can go into listing maintenance later and upload a virtual tour from the property panorama program. Or you may have a virtual tour that you paid somebody to create for you, and you could place that in there. After that is directions. You can see that directions are required. We'd like to see something a little more than check out your GPS in there. So you really want to put in complete directions. Corner of and I'll just make something up here. So put in your best information about the directions. Directions is like the narrative, can't be branded because this information goes out to the public. So don't put any phone numbers in here, or don't put in look for sale sign in yard and name who the listing company is. That's your directions. Then your agent remarks. These are remarks that are to be seen only by other agents, not by the public. So you won't find agent remarks on any of the customer displays. So just type in your agent remarks, things that you want the other agents to know about. And that is, maybe you put a purchase agreement underneath the paperclip. So you could say, please see paperclip for showing instructions, for purchase instructions, purchase contract. Okay, so put in how things you want the other agents to know about how to show or sell your property. There's an additional remarks addendum, and so a lot of times we were told that there weren't enough agent remarks for the agent to put everything they wanted in there. So we've added a separate section for additional agent remarks. And there'll be an icon on the top of the full display listing that you can click on so people can see what your additional agent remarks are. A lot of times with the short sales and the foreclosures and whatnot, the agents have more that they want to tell other agents. So that's where that comes from. Office remarks are only for in-house people to see. So only the agents within the same office can see what's in the office remarks. So you could put in there, even though we don't condone it, if you have a combo lockbox, you could put it in under office remarks, where you're not allowed to put it in under agent remarks or the narrative. So office remarks are just in-house remarks. That brings us to the coded features, but one other thing I want to mention is Innovia did add a spell check. So if you go ahead and fill out the whole narrative and you're not sure, or you don't think you're the greatest speller in the world, you can click on the little ABC checkmark thing, and it'll spell check your input for you. Then we go to coded features. Again, if you've printed out the standard from the standard forms button on the front of Innovia, the profile sheets or standard forms, take those out on your listing call, you would have all of these things checked off ahead of time, so you wouldn't have to be guessing as to which ones you should check and which ones you shouldn't check. But you want to go through and check all the ones that apply to your property, especially look at 1 or 2 story. People may not want to have a 2-story home. So you'll put what actually this property is, any water amenities. It's got a boat lift with a bulkheaded seawall and a private dock. Okay, it's direct water. The view is east. It's got a 2-car garage. You'll notice that garage is required. It's red, like I mentioned before. So you got a 2-car garage, and it is also maybe an RV boat parking spot. Then we have location descriptions. It's on a cul-de-sac. Any of these others apply. You check them. What the construction is, we'll say it's concrete block. What's the roof made out of? It's made out of a shingle roof. What's the exterior finish? Is stucco. Flooring is carpet and tile. Are there any additional rooms? Yes, there's a Florida room, and there's a utility room in the garage. Anything in reference to the master bath, we'll say there's a shower, a tub, a walk-in closet. Interior features, ceiling fans, a decorative fireplace, formal living room, eat-in kitchen. And so you just want to take your time and go through and check all of the different things that apply for your particular property. Exterior features, there's a deck, screened in, it's under security. None of these apply to our particular property. Under equipment and appliances, okay, there's a compactor. The dishwasher goes with the sale. The disposal goes with the sale. And just click all the things that you've outlined in the listing agreement that go with the purchase. Anything special about the pool other than, okay, it's in-ground and heated, check those. It's in a private pool. What are the utilities? Okay, the heating is central, cooling is electric, and go through and check all the ones that apply to your particular property. Any particular community amenities, there's a park in the area, tennis courts. We don't have any management of this property. In this case, it's a single family residence. Any association fees, even though it's a single family residence, there are none. So we would just say, but it's a required field, so we just say other. Any docs on file? We have a survey. Any restrictions? Check any of those that apply. Pets. If there's any pet things that apply, check on those. Any kind of financing involved. Okay, the owner will consider, yeah, they'd like cash. They'll hold a first or a second. Lease purchase possible. Any of these others that apply, check those. When is the possession? Typically, okay, at closing. How do we show this property? This is the information that the other agents will have to follow if they want to show your property. So just call list office. Any other services not provided? This goes back to the point where we talked about the full or limited service entry. So if you have a limited service option or MLS entry only, you want to check the things that you don't do in the course of the sale of the property. Once you're all done with the coded features, don't hit reset and don't hit the X, because that'll just clear everything out. You want to just hit the accept button. And once you've got the coded features done, you'll see the rest of the listing maintenance screen you'll use later on when you need to go in and put in open house info, change the listing to contingent or pending, withdraw the listing, or delete the listing. So then we would just go over here to the left and we would click Save. And it will save the listing, assign it an ML number. And from that point, we can go in and print out a full display, which is what I would recommend for your files. You can print a customer display. This is what's going to go out to the general public. You take a look at that one. Upload photos and upload PDFs. You can verify the map location for your listing. Most of your residential properties get mapped correctly because the address is pretty well established. But we do have occasions where they're not exactly on the right spot. So in this case, to change the map location, you click on the little peg. And then you would be able to move it to the correct location. If you're going to have an open house, you're all ready for that. You just click the open house link. That'll bring your open house setup. Click on the little calendar here to set up the open house date. So it'll say Saturday. If you're going to do it every Saturday now for the next month, you can click recurring and it'll allow you to add those dates in. Choose the time. Probably not going to have too many open houses at 1 o'clock in the morning, so we want to change that. Let's say we'll have it from 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. I should say, to 4 p.m. Hosting agent, it's going to be lookup agent, pick me, clear host. It's going to be probably pick you as the listing agent. Put in any remarks. Okay, and then click save. And the open house will show up in the open house box on the front of Innovia, and it'll also be available to do open houses from the public side if you chose public when you set up the open house. And you can go in and change that and put in different dates whenever you want to change that for the open house. You can do the share button, which you can put it out on Twitter or LinkedIn or something like that. You can do Facebook. The only thing you need to know about doing listings on Facebook is you have to have a business page. And so you need to create a business page for the Facebook function to work. The Show It Now services, you can set that up. The Show It Now manual is under the links of interest on the front page of Innovia. And that'll go through and explain to you how to use the Show It Now service. A couple other things I wanted to mention also here over on the left is we have a Save Partial button. So that would be if you're halfway through inputting the listing and something comes up and you can't finish it, you would just go in and click Save Partial. Let me hit the back button here. And you hit Save Partial. Comes up with a little box. It has the default partial _1. You could change that to the property address or the owner's name to identify it. And then later on, when you want to come in and finish it, you go into Get Partial. And there's one of your partials. You click Go. And that'll bring up the listing maintenance screen and you can finish putting in the partial. With this new listing, if I had other ones that I wanted to create, you could click Clone. There's a clone feature. And with that, you can enter an ML number and clone, which means copy everything that's in that listing, except you might want to change the price. So you would enter that, put in the new list date, a new expire date, and if there was a new agent taking over the listing, you could look up the agent and then click Submit. Look up the agent. And so and click Submit. And then click Save after that. So that would prevent you or keep you from having to completely re-input a listing if you have a similar listing Or you could use that with a withdrawn or an expired if you wanted to update that rather than having to re-input the entire thing. So just in summary, when you're at your home page and you have your listings there, you can go under your inventory, click on your blue button, and then it'll bring up the one-liner where you can go in and edit, add photos, add PDFs, and things like that.
For more information, go to www.space321.com.